My name is Leah Sonaria, and I'm going to have an incredible interview with one of my dear friends and teachers, Kiya Ankara, today. And we are going to talk about Ankh healing. So, welcome, Kiya. So great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time, for throwing some questions at me. And yeah, always lovely to spend time with you.
Yeah. So, let's begin with what is Ankh healing? Because this is a vast subject, and you've just written a book. So, actually, let's
It's a
see the
biggie.
book first.
Right.
This book just came out this past
That's the
week.
new one. Yeah.
Yay! And
Yeah.
yeah, it's it's a whole training that you also offer. So tell
Mm.
us a little bit about this new ancient modality.
Yeah. It's new and very ancient too. So in a way, I feel that the kind of the easiest way for everyone to understand it is to compare it to Reiki. As a lot of us, I think, know these days, Reiki is an energy healing system within which people are initiated into it. They have the sort of different symbols placed into the hands that unlock energy and in a way remind all of us that we can pour energy through the body and then offer it as healing, and whether that is directly to ourselves for self-healing, whether that is offered to someone else for supporting them in their healing journey as well. And so obviously that is a recent modality. Master Usui created that in the 1920s, and yet it's become one of the most popular energy healing modalities in the world today, which is amazing. And of course, there's so many other lineages that have a way of working with energy and healing. And so when I first started getting like downloads from Isis and connecting into past lives from Egypt, within that mega download that all came through initially, what came was a lot of tantric teachings, but within that also there was like this whole kind of subset of teachings which were all connected to Ankh healing as a healing modality, which is also working with symbols, and we unlock the symbols in the palms of the hand. Obviously, some of that is Ankh, as the name suggests, there's Ankhs in it. Uh, and there's another layer to it within which we're learning these Ankh breathwork practices, and we're breathing our way through the big Ankh that maps onto the physical body. And once you learn how to breathe through that, you start connecting the lower chakras to the heart and expanding the heart. We also then connect the heart into what the Egyptians would call the bar, the soul point, which is above the crown of the head. And once we start doing those circulations, we start getting super energized and super connected. And then, if we then choose to orient ourselves in the direction of healing, we can open the ankhs in the palms of the hands and then pour through golden light, healing light, either into our self or at a more advanced stage, we can then offer those Ankh healings to other people. So it was interesting because initially it came as a wider mega download from Isis. And then at a certain point, she actually came in and said, like, hey, this is a teaching that in a way almost stands it alone in and of itself. And you could just offer this part of the wider Egyptian Tantric teachings. And yet, this is almost like the healing stream, which someone could pick up and they could actually drink of it without deep diving into other dimensions of the Egyptian Tantric path, because the healing stream sort of works in and of its own right. And so it's a way of connecting in with the gods and the goddesses. You could work with it in a way that is, in some ways, almost like non-tantric, just as an energy healing modality. And it's super beautiful. And in and of its own right, it's very powerful.
Wow,
Does
amazing.
that make sense?
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I did the training last year, I felt a major shift, and yeah, it's really an incredible key. Literally, it is the key of life. And I'd love to hear about your own, since you've downloaded this modality and started working it with it personally, what are some of the things that you notice in your own life with working with the Ankh?
Gosh, well, like I'm laughing because there's so many, so many things have come from working with the Ankh. I mean, in a way, prior to Isis coming, I started going into this one Egyptian Ankh practice that I knew that someone had taught me. And the very, very first time I ever tried it, this is going back like 6-7 years now, the very, very first time I ever tried it, and I was told, hey, by the way, you can raise this energy, it can come to the heart. You can then turn the loop and then send it, loop it out the back of the heart, over the crown, back into the heart. And initially, part of my brain was like, really? Is there an energy pathway there? But I tried it. And the very, very first moment I tried it, I was like, oh my God, like, that's really powerful. Like, I immediately felt the fact that there's a pathway there which actually any of us can connect into. And what was interesting around that time was I got, within, say, like 2 weeks of that, I got a mega download around how to map the breath onto the Ankh. And this just came spontaneously. I'd been reading Magdalene manuscript, and at one point, I literally heard a voice that said, hey, put the book down. And the voice was so loving and clear and strong that I was like, when I hear a voice like that, I follow the guidance if it feels right. So I put the book down. And the next words were, go sit out on the balcony and just look at the ocean. It was in Kopangan at this time. So again, I followed that next bit of guidance, sat down, looked at the ocean. And then the next words that came were, I'm going to show you how to map the breath onto the Ankh. This is a breathwork technique. Was very, very strong in emphasizing that. This is a breathwork technique. And for me, I have been mad about breathwork stuff for years. So suddenly I was like, okay, I'm interested in this download. And then it gave me like precise mapping of like, okay, now raise the breath from the root of the body to the heart. Now expand it outwards to the sides. Hold the breath for a moment. Now gather it back in to the heart. Now send it through the loop. And when it's come back in, now take that's just been circulated through all the higher chakras, take that energy from the heart and offer it up to all that you believe in, and then go back into receiving anything back. So it gave this very precise series of steps to follow. And I followed it, and I felt such a powerful energization of the body and the energy body, what the Egyptians would call the Ka, Ka. And so by the end of that, I was like, whoa, I don't know where that download came from. I wasn't even understanding it as Isis at that point. And then the funny thing was, a number of years later, when Isis really came into my life, she was like, hey, by the way, that download a few years ago that you got, that was from me. And I was a little bit like, so why didn't you tell me that it was from you? And she was like, well, it wouldn't have quite served where you were at that point. You weren't quite ready for the full connection. But it was almost like that was one of the first keys that you received, that was preparing you to be ready to open fully to the Isis medicine. And so I feel that she came in a much stronger way off the back of just working with that one practice. She then said, hey, by the way, you've had these past lives in Egypt. If you want, I can reconnect you back into the lineage. And by the way, the lineage is not only Egyptian lineage, it's also the Rose lineage, which is the mystic teachings that passed through Egypt, as you know, Leah, were then passed on to people like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And they then helped to rebirth the teachings for the new time that they were living in. And in a way, I think part of their great work is in trying to free the mystical teachings from all the dogma of that time, and actually allow it to become available for everyone, rather than say just for the people that could afford to go to the temple and pay the money to the priest that would then get them, the higher blessings and some of the teachings and things. And so in a way, I feel like both Jesus and Mary Magdalene were instrumental in uh, leveling the playing field and being like, hey, actually, these spiritual teachings are for everyone. This is not just for the rich. It's not for the people only with money. It's not just for the priests and the priestesses, even. This is teachings that are here, as the birthright of every human being. And therefore, everyone, if you're interested to learn it, it is right there. And I think the beautiful thing right now is we're in a time where so many people are getting like the downloads of all these things that were known historically in ancient times, and perhaps at points they then got forgotten about, and yet they are all there waiting for anyone that can tune into them. And the more you do spiritual practice, the more you begin to hear the higher guidance and the higher wisdom, whether that is from uh, a being that might come and identify themselves, like Isis did for me. But for years prior to that, at times I just got I just got a download from Great Spirit. Like sometimes I get downloads and all the next set of teachings for the ecstatic trance dance classes I used to offer. And I was like, oh, great, just had a download. I'm going to share that now with my community. So I feel that in a way, I am nothing special. I actually feel that every single human is special, and we all have an opportunity to work with spiritual practice to open the channel, open the vessel, and within that we can receive our own downloads and guidance, or both. We can also just open to that source of healing energy, and receive it for ourselves, or receive it and share it with other people. So it's so multi-layered.
Mm.
And yeah, my life
Wow.
got completely transformed, and also all my teachings got completely transformed. And it wasn't that I dropped everything I'd learned before. In fact, Isis said, like, hey, everything you've done throughout all these years of teaching, this has all been preparing you for this realignment into Egyptian lineage and Rose lineage teachings. So that for me was a really powerful moment, where I realized, like, oh, okay, like, I've not been wasting any time. It's actually just been that I have been getting prepared for this. And I think that's true for a lot of us. Like we may go from one lineage teaching to another over years. And eventually, at a certain point, you get perhaps at a certain point like an unexpected course correction into a lineage that maybe you didn't even realize was the one that you'd been walking towards all these years.
Wow. Wow, what an answer. Yeah. The channel is open for you today. And yeah, I mean I really feel it, because I am one of those people that just kind of stumbled into this lineage and then realized that I have known this my whole life, but I'm also rediscovering this
Yeah,
through guides and teachers,
yeah.
whether human or spirit. And really the Ankh breath has been pivotal in my life. I do it every single morning, and it really centers me, anchors me, it gets me really rooted into my truth before I start the day. And wow, what a powerful key it is. And so I'd love to ask you a little bit about your trainees, your participants that have gone through your training, and
Sure.
some of the results and benefits that they've experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had a really interesting period where I got very strong guidance that I should offer it to people here in Bali as as a weekend training initiation process. And then there was a certain point where after 6 months or so of offering it live to people, and it was super powerful, just for small groups, everyone kept on being blown away by it. And there was a certain point where Isis came in and she was like, hey, it's time to share this online. And my first thought was like, really? Like, is this really going to work online? And, I've actually been quite pro online, like I offer a lot of online sessions, one-to-one sessions. But part of me was like, I don't know if this is going to quite work as a group thing online. But the guidance was there. And so I, again, was just like following the guidance, because every time I do something really potent seems to happen. So we sent out a call, and actually was surprised at how many people like felt the call and come joined us for the live training. And then what then blew my mind was that actually the online trainings, not the in-person ones, the online trainings were even more powerful than the ones that I'd been doing in the real world, like the physical world. And it kind of blew my mind, because I was like, hang on, like, how does this even work? And of course, it is all working energetically anyway. So in a way, whether you're there in person or whether you're there dialing in from anywhere on the planet, if you're coming with a clear, like a strong desire and an intention to learn this new thing, then you, combined with all these other ones that are connecting in from around the world, there's something actually in that on another level is you are creating an extremely potent Ka energy field. That would be one way of viewing it. Ka, Ka, is the energy body. And yet another way of seeing the Ka would be the energy field that we might create as a whole group. So yes, people were spread out all around the world, and yet we're all dialing into the same field together on another plane of consciousness. Actually, we're all in the same space. Energetically, we are in the exact same space. And then magic starts happening, especially when you call on, Goddess Isis, Osiris, Hathor, Heru. Like, there's so many ones that we can call on, and they are so ready and keen, and sort of like it is their joy and their pleasure to offer the ancient wisdom teachings to a whole new generation of people. And I think especially, when you look at it on a timeline thing as well, there was a period where, the Egyptian civilization grew and did such amazing things, and so many people lived through this great epoch, many, many, many generations, drinking from these profound teachings and wisdom. And then, different conquering countries came in. At a certain point, the Romans came in and took the country over. And along with that, at a certain point, in a way, went to the heart, literally to the heart of the temples at points, and destroyed, sometimes even physically destroying, or, sort of destroying imagery in the hieroglyphs, because they were trying to take the teachings down but in a way to actually dismantle the faith, because they were there with their own agenda of, they want control of the grain, they want control of all the great resources that the Egyptian lands offered. And some of that was because they literally needed to just feed the Roman army's empire. So some of it was extremely politically motivated, and was absolutely not reverent. I mean, I'm sure there were Roman, so, some of the people coming in probably were actually quite reverential to the culture, and yet others were not. And so the teachings got destroyed. The Egyptian wisdom had to get secreted away and hidden underground. But gradually over generations it got lost and lost. And then Christianity started coming in, and then the Islamic invasion came in. And so then, of course, today we now have an Egypt that perceives itself as Islamic, and actually a lot of people may have even forgot their history, in the same way that, you know, my people from England, we were originally druids, we were wizards and, you know, wizards and witches, and all of that also got destroyed by the Roman invasion, and then the Christian teachings that were espoused off the back of that. So I feel that in a way, you know, everything that now comes back to so many of us is coming back because the great wisdom teachings, they can try and cut it off at the head. They can try and burn people at the stake, quite literally at points, as you know. Priests and priestesses were outed as the scapegoats of the society for a very long time, for many generations. And yet, the great wisdom teachings cannot be killed, you know. A physical body might be killed, but that soul will then just reincarnate into another body, have another lifetime where they perhaps are then finding another way back to the wisdom teachings, you know, in one way or another. So in that sense, I feel that these are the eternal teachings, whether you drink from of them from, say, Egypt or from India or from China or from South America. Like, there's all the different wisdom lineages available to us today, and that's one of the blessings of the world we live in now. We can literally, you know, Google and receive such high teachings, which once upon a time, thousands of years ago, were literally the mystery school secrets that you would only get if you were a high initiate, you know. So in a way, I think some people perhaps don't perhaps take it for granted, you know, the fact like, oh yeah, we can access all these teachings, it's all cool. It's a huge thing, because in a way, even, you know, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, following some of these teachings could have led to your death, or could have led to you being ousted from an entire community. And yet now we live in a very precious time where all the wisdom teachings of all the lineages are actually quite widely and freely available for so many of us. And so then the question becomes, which stream do you want to drink from, you know? Or which streams? Which streams call to your heart? Which streams call to your soul? And I feel that we are gradually shown and guided to the ones that are calling us, you know. So obviously for you, Kali has been such a great teacher in so many ways. And, you know, in a profound way, she's been one of your teachers. And yet, you know, as you also feel the call to the Egyptian lineage as well. And so I feel also that this is a time where we are allowed to drink from the different streams of wisdom. And I actually feel that, you know, on those other planes, there is zero competition. You know, like Isis is hanging out with Kali Ma, is hanging out with Hathor, is hanging out with, you know, like Kuan Yin. Like, they're all hanging out and they're all like, fucking love you, babe. You know, like, just go for it. Like they are in full support of all the different expressions of all the lineages. And I feel in a way that we, on the human level, are recovering from a great period where we may have been told, like, no, 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 this is the way, that's the only way, everything else is bad, you should avoid all that other stuff. But actually, I feel that now is the rewriting of that, because it's not true. The truth is, we can drink from all the mystical streams, and whichever one is meant to light you up, you will know profoundly. Like, you will feel it in the cells of your body as you are like broken open by the tool or the technique or the practice. And so you will know experientially which lineages you're meant to drink from. And I just didn't know that I was getting eventually like prepared and led to the Egyptian stuff. that was a completely unexpected, almost like a U-turn for me. And yet it was a U-turn, and it was suddenly like, oh my God, like, I think this was the one that I've been searching for all my life without quite realizing it.
It reminds me that, instead of a U-turn, it's like it Ankh looped. You just had an Ankh loop in your life.
Yeah.
And came back full
Came
circle, full loop.
right back to the
Um,
heart, of course. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, wow. Again, what an answer. A history lesson just embedded itself in there. And I think I asked you about benefits that your participants have received, and I
Oh,
do know you've had some really powerful
yes. Yeah,
experiences
yeah,
that you'd
yeah, yeah,
like to share
yeah, yeah,
from them. But I just love the way you kind of just loop around to a tangent, and it's beautiful because it is, a function of like the circuitry that has been laid in your body temple. I can actually sense it and really see it now that
yeah.
there's some powerful pathways that have awakened within you. But yeah, do tell us about these miraculous healings.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for bringing me back to the original question. So, for me, I mean, many people had really potent, sort of miraculous experiences off the back of the training, but there is still one biggie that really stands out. Um, there was a lady called Rose. She's from America. She had been suffering for many years with a chronic health issue, and that health issue meant it was kind of crazy. I'd never even heard of this kind of health issue. So she had to keep her core body temperature down at all times. So she would be using AC, and she had to, this is crazy as well. She had to, when she went to bed at night, she would have to pack ice around her physical body to keep the core body temperature down low enough. Because if it even went a tiny bit over this certain temperature degree, I'm not sure what the temperature was, but if it went over that certain degree, her entire body would feel almost as though it was set on fire. She would come out in a rash all across her whole body, and she would be incapacitated. She couldn't move, she couldn't work, she couldn't do anything. She'd been going to doctors for years. The doctors could not get to the bottom of what was triggering the reaction. It was like such an extreme reaction in the body, and they could not resolve it. And so when she came to our training, uh, she actually didn't really share in too much detail that this health condition was happening. And yet, on day 2 of the level 1, she came to class again. And she was actually one of the first people to share. She was like, hey, I need to tell you about what's happened because I feel like I've just experienced a miracle. And she went on to explain how she had, after the training the day before, she had this intuitive knowing, intuitive sense of, I think this has healed this issue that I've had for years. And to the point that she knew that she could walk outside and walk to the shops. Now, that in a way sounds like a small thing for most of us, but for her, with this health condition, if the health condition kicks in, she's going to be in agonizing pain, might even end up in a hospital. Like it's a pretty serious reaction when it really kicks in. And yet she had the knowing, the felt sense, the intuitive sense, and perhaps also just the faith and, that inner teacher knowing of, I am healed, like I am now healed. So she walked to the shop nearby. She came back, and that night was the first night where she did not pack her entire body in ice in order to go to sleep. And so that was massive, like massive, literally like a life-changing miracle healing that has from that point forth truly transformed her life. And I couldn't believe it. I'd never heard of anything quite like that from any of offering the Ankh healing. And yet, again and again and again, miracles keep happening within the field. And I personally feel that that is because we are all dialing in to this shared energy field, and we're invoking the support of the Neteru, the gods and the goddesses of the Egyptian lineage, that in a way have almost had 1,500 years of hardly anyone's been praying to them, you know, which it kind of sounds strange to say that, but because of the successive religious oppressions of the prior teachings, it's almost like they've been there. And of course, I'm sure they've been finding their ways to still support people. But so many people have had the indoctrinated belief that you shouldn't go look at the older teachings, whether that's prior to Christianity, whether that's prior to Islam, or whatever the religious system may have been, that might have said, like, no, 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 don't look at the old stuff, look at the new stuff. The new stuff's the good stuff. So I feel we're also collectively healing out of religious indoctrinations on so many levels.
Wow. Wow. That's so incredible that she experienced that level of healing.
Yeah,
It's really remarkable what's possible. And I want to talk a little bit about sexual healing actually,
sure.
because you also teach on Tantra.
Yep.
And, you know, as we go deeper into these realms of learning about the imprints that we've inherited, maybe from our ancestors or from other people in our lives, from past lovers, and all this stuff in the lower regions, the sacral chakra. How can Ankh healing support with that?
Okay. This is quite a deep, multi-layered question. So, there's like multiple levels on which it can support. So, firstly, like on one, simple level in a way, if you learn the Ankh breathwork practices and you learn how to kind of send energy through the loop, now that on one level is just an energy circulation practice. You could just choose to, use it to empower you to be a more potent, energy healer, Reiki healer plus plus. However, you can also learn that and then bring that into the bedroom with your beloved. And if you both learnt how to circulate the energy, this energy that for one individual would raise up through their body to their heart and expand, if you were then doing that together with your partner, you're then raising the sexual energy to the heart, you're expanding it, you're condensing it, and you're looping it. And then there's a way in which you can send the loop not only out the back of your own heart and over the crown, through the bar, through the soul, not just through your own circuit, but you can send it through both bar soul points. So you send it from your soul to your partner's soul. They then receive it in through the back of their heart, and they then give it straight back to you. So in a way, that would be kind of almost like the couple's equivalent of this beautiful, great energy circulation pathway. And it then becomes one is giving, the other is receiving. Once they've received it, they offer it straight back, and then the one that has just given becomes the receiver. It becomes this continual energy circulation exchange, which is most especially empowering and energizing, activating the heart and the soul. And obviously, within the world, within the culture that we live in these days, I feel in a way like, sex with love, that's kind of like, that's totally cool. That's kind of in a way like the wider society is quite fine with the idea that we will make love with the people that we are partners with. And yet, what I feel has been lost along the way for so many people is that it's what Isis in recent days, to me, she started talking about the Egyptian high Tantra. And I was like, okay, what do you mean by Egyptian high Tantra? And she said, well, the high Tantra would be that you go into a energy lovemaking with another person, within which you might well be in the same physical location, you might be on the same bed, but the experience may be actually more in and through the energy bodies, rather than it say it being a purely physical based lovemaking. Now, when you start opening into those realms of tantric experience, at a certain point you realize, like, oh my God, there is an orgasm of the energy body that in some ways is actually like 100 times more powerful than a physical orgasm. Not only that, it is also a perpetual uh, energy circuit. It almost feels at points like it's in an eternal loop of energy that you can loop and loop and loop and loop and loop for as long as it feels good and for as long as your energy body can handle. And when you do that, you are opening into the greater, what Isis would call the Egyptian high tantric mysteries. So then you start to realize that these two souls can be meeting in and through all the energy planes as well. And you can then be still sharing a profound experience that can be felt in and through the body, but it starts being felt in and through the ka, the energy body, and it starts on another level preparing the two ka energy bodies, so that ultimately, like the kind of final goal is to get so used to moving between the physical body, the gross physical body, let's call it, for want of some better words, or the material physical body. Gross has some negative connotations, so let's throw that word out. So there's the material physical body, and if you cultivate the connection to the ka energy body for, throughout your life, you will reach a point where at the point of death, at the point where the body is dropped, you drop the body, but you just shift into the car. It's like you drop one vehicle and you just shift into the energy body. And obviously, as we know, the Egyptians were fascinated by the idea of the afterlife. And so they were preparing the car energy body so that at the point where the body is dropped, we shift into the car energy body. And when we do that, we take with us the entire memories of that lifetime. And we're then able to go into the duat. And if you reach a certain level, you can then start, in a way, carrying through some of the wisdom, some of the knowing, some of the knowledge from that life into the next life. You might choose to be reborn. You may choose to be like, actually, maybe I'm going to hang out on some of the new plane, the energetic planes for a time, and continue the incarnational existence on that plane. If that makes sense.
Wow.
I suddenly realized, like, shit, this is getting a bit out there. Like, in a way, when you see the mythical story of Isis and Osiris, Osiris dies, Isis manages to resurrect him, and yet eventually Osiris is like, hey, I've got to carry on. Like, I can't actually go back into that physical body anymore. I need to now dwell in the afterlife and operate and exist from that place. And then, in a way, they then become this incredible duality of, she's fully in life, he is fully in death, which has so many mystical interpretations that can open, when you just think about that polarity. But there was something in him bringing the life everlasting into that realm beyond life, that again is like, these are the mystic teachings that keep getting reborn. Jesus ends up on the cross, he dies, but did he really die? Because actually he also shifted into the Ka energy body and continued his work on the other planes, and so I think again, like, this is, we have such a scientific worldview understanding of, when the body's done, we're kind of over. And yet, the moment you start embracing the mysteries and the energy body and all of those greater teachings, you then start realizing, like, hang on, do we really die? Or is it just that the vehicle gets its expiry date, So is the body that dies really you, or is the body that dies just the vehicle? And you can choose to step out of the car and be like, okay, see you later to that car, the CAR vehicle that's served you. So you're out of one car and you're just back into the other car, the KA version instead.
Wow. I feel like every time I ask you a question, the Ankh loop widens and it wants to encompass more of this greater wisdom, which is, it is literally, because it's so beautiful that everything you just touched on, because I personally just gone through such a massive initiation with these energies, and Isis specifically has been one of my core guides, as well as Hathor. But Isis is now kind of offering me these higher sex magic codes, let's call them. I even just had a little initiation this morning after a workout, and I just laid on my back, and some of you might know that I am a channel for them as well. And the language that speaks through me is the Heka language. And it was this massive, like, energy output of kind of just recohering the field back to what we already know about our sacred sexuality and how we can be in right relationship with all things, and how even you and I on this call right now are creating a polarity, because you are in day, I am in night. Yeah. You are in summer, I am in winter.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's a
we're
yeah, and I feel like this is the we are. And this is the powerful effect of polarity integration, when two poles come together in this way and creates this energy potential. I'd love to talk a little bit about how people can leverage for their abundance, for magnetism, for bringing in the aligned ones and the resources that will support them on their sacred path.
Okay, this is a good question. Maybe we need to look at it from a few angles. So, in relation to just the kind of the abundance key, and this is also, at some point there is going to be a whole download training on all the abundances. And yeah, we can also, like, if we were to look just on a even simple level of what you could work with even today from this point now, to lean into the abundance, working with the Ankh. And so even with the book, this is golden. The symbol is golden quite intentionally. When you see it a lot of time in Egypt, it is very commonly gold. That's the most common color that you'll see it depicted as. And it is golden because it is a reminder of that sunlight, the light of Ra, but beyond even the solar disk, actually the golden frequency, which is both a kingly energy and a queenly energy. And I feel that part of the Isis abundance teachings, which are very, very connected to the Ankh, in part is about, can you sit on your throne? Can you align the spine? So aligning the spine would be the straight aspect of the symbol. Can you open your heart? Can you then not only open the heart, but can you gather back in the gifts of that expansion? So we're not just doing that just to do like a nice, pretty yoga pose. We're doing that. We're actually opening the wings of the Ankh. And again, this is why you've got the wings depicted. We are opening our wings in order to open to more energy. We are gathering the wings back in order to then gather the energy as if we're condensing that energy back in, almost like an energy ball. You could see it almost as like a golden ball of sunlight or a ball of moonlight, depending on whether you're working with the solar or the lunar currents. So you kind of gather this in, and in the gathering of the energy, it becomes stronger. Then when we're looping, we're then starting to circulate that through all the higher chakras. So you're doing another level of circulation. Now, where that ties in to abundance and manifestation is what Isis was saying recently. Again, this is some quite new downloads. She was like, hey, you can manifest, you can manifest in a way anything through working with the Ankh. And how you would do that would be to firstly get super, super clear on what it is you might be wishing to manifest. Now, part of that, before you start going in like, okay, I want the Ferrari and the house and the partner and the before going in perhaps with the egoic desire of I want all these things, her first advice would be, hang on. Firstly, just get into the alignment with the heart and the soul and dial into that higher level of, okay, I'm aligned to the heart, I'm aligned to the soul. Now that I'm sitting in that great alignment and I'm sitting on my throne, and obviously Isis's very name, Aset, translates as throne. When you see her image, you see her with a throne symbol on the top of the head, because she is wanting to invite all of us as the king or the queen of our own life to sit upon the throne, to get into the alignment first, and then to actually, it might sound strange, but actually, rather than to be like, what do I want? You actually start asking the soul, and also you start asking for the higher guidance of what is it that is wanting to be birthed through me, and how can I best serve? How can I best serve the world? How can I support myself in stepping up more? So, of course, some of that does become deeply supportive to your own serving of your own self and your own heart and your own needs. And yet the orientation is coming from the alignment with the soul, the alignment with the divine, and that then starting to inform everything, all of it, the manifestation of all of it. And so then from that place, you start getting the downloads of the things you're meant to manifest. And then you keep working with the Ankh, and that could be just on your own if you're single, if you're with a partner, and if they are open to circulating the energies together, then you come together and you super energize. If you're not in relationship, you could also come together just with practice partners. So that could be someone of the same sex, could be someone of the opposite sex. But if you go in with the intention of like, hey, let us both do the soul alignment, the heart and the soul alignment. Let us meet in presence and consciousness, like witnessing one another through the eyes as well. So we meet in that expanded state, but together with another person. And let us together, through the meeting of the two consciousnesses and through the intention of manifesting in service to the divine or to whatever you might believe in, whatever name you might give to that, you then start creating high, let us call it high magic, but from a very profoundly aligned place, where, you know, like in a way, for want of better words, the lower way would be to allow Set as the egoic aspect of us to be like, right, we want all these things because we want them and because we deserve them and because that's how it is and we should have all these things. So obviously high magic can get muddied very easily if Set, which would be, you know, the synonymous of the solar plexus and synonymous of the personal pursuit of power, wealth, or fame, you know, in whatever way that might be, or attention as well, love, but it might also be like, you know, the purely self-serving love. If you can find the ways, and again, I feel like this is why the Ankh practice is so powerful, is it's not negating the ego, but it's aligning the egoic power into the heart, into the soul connection. And that then is really helping to profoundly balance the ego's desires. And so then life will start bringing to you what the soul and the heart most yearn for, and what would most serve you and your community, the collective, all of it. So does that answer
Wow.
the question?
Wow. Yeah, it does. I mean, it really what it's demonstrating in real time is that the outflow of the offering just gets switched on when you're in Ankh consciousness because it's like
Ah,
there's so much that wants to stream through because it's a remembrance. There's this like, you know, I get it every day and I have to write for hours every day now. And there's so many
yeah.
things that just want to be brought forth and those are high value things.
Mm,
And it's
mm,
it's it's really beautiful to know that as soon as you are in alignment with divine's will in that way and you can just sort of be the vehicle, the conduit, the instrument for these transmissions to come through that hold a high frequency that you know are embedded with so much that we can't even really fathom with our human minds at the moment. Transmission, and I really feel it when I'm in your presence, and so you have these longer trainings that I want you to speak about because really this
sure.
is a taster. I mean, this has been a timeless hour. It is really incredible what can really be packed into a short period. Also
Yeah,
spaced out a beautiful program, and I'd love you to share what you have in store for this year.
sure. Yeah. So, well, the next immediate thing is we're doing another round of the Ankh Healing live online training, which I'm super excited to dive back into because obviously it was so powerful last time. So that's going to be starting at the end of February, and we're doing it again for both sides of the world. So we've got a timing that's really good for America and Canada. We've got timings that are really good for, you know, sort of the European crew. Uh, we're kind of covering all the bases, so everyone should be able to dial in. Some lucky people might even get the choice of both because of the time zone thing. So that's going to be 2 weekends of training for everyone, deep diving into the Ankh healing arts. First weekend is all about how do we learn this for our own personal practice and for our own self healing. And then in the second weekend, we go into 2 days of learning. Okay, now that you've received it as self healing, now that we've unlocked the Ankh symbol in the palms of the hands and the Merkaba and a few other symbols, now we've got all of that running and flowing and it's all feeling good. Let us invite in, if we feel ready. There's a point where on the second training you invite in a friend, and you then are I'll be guiding, but you'll then be the one that's holding a healing space for a friend of yours. And again, even just that in itself is super beautiful. And some people came and they'd been, offering healings for years. Others were super new to healing and were like, oh my God, that was the first healing I've ever offered. And it was so powerful. And the person received so much. And so it is a beautiful, beautiful empowerment for anyone and everyone, whether you are a very seasoned healer or whether you're a newbie, but someone that feels that sense of like, I think I want to at least try out, try and have the taste, the experience of offering a healing to someone else, and create in a way even more than it's not so much like you are the healer, it's actually you are going to create a beautiful healing container within which both of you are going into a healing stream. And you're supported by me, you're supported by the gods and the goddesses of Egypt, you're supported by whatever you might believe in. And all of that combined creates a really, really potent healing field. So, yeah, it's available for everyone. And I think it's a really nice way of, if you've read some of the books or if you've checked out some of my teachings and you're like, okay, I want to, sort of take a bit more of a step in and learn something, then it's a really great taster that is going to take you deeper and fast track you into the Ankh healing path, either for yourself or for supporting other people. Most likely it's going to be a bit of both. There were some people in the last training that were not quite ready to offer a healing to someone else. So they just came and did the level 2 and they were just continuing with their own self-healing practice. So it kind of works for anyone in whatever way might work best for you. So that's the little training. And then the bigger, full, long training is at the end of April of this year. We're going to be going into another round of Egyptian Tantric Secrets mentorship. And the mentorship is for people that they most likely are already going to be teachers, spiritual teachers of one kind or another. And they're looking to train up in the Egyptian Tantric Secrets. So in a way, all the content that came through from my book, or the book that downloaded from ISIS, let's call it. It's our book. And Mary Magdalene has a nice chapter as well. She kind of makes a little guest appearance in that book as well. And so in a way that, again, that teaching is for those that feel the call and want to be deeply initiated into the lineage. At the first level, they are initiated for their own personal evolution. And then in the second level, they are being prepared to start to teach. Firstly, they're teaching with the cohort of online brothers and sisters of the lineage. It's a super loving and supportive field to start, holding the space and offering some of the teachings. And then at a certain point in that journey, you are then kind of given the homework of like, okay, go out now and share this with your community through a little class, a little taster, a little something. And then you're going to come back and show us and share what happened in that training. And we keep kind of preparing you gradually. So it's kind of almost like you might invite a few people, you try a few things out, you bring all of that insight back, and you keep then honing the skills of the space holder, And I've been, sort of teaching and offering things for 16 years, and I still feel that I am learning. Like that to me is also like it's a lifetime journey to learn, to hold more and more immaculate space for people. And there are always more and more things you can do to refine that. So what I've noticed in terms of the people that have come to that training, they are that it is definitely not for beginners. If you're new to spiritual teachings in general, this is probably not the training for you. The Ankh healing would be a much better fit for people that are a little newer. But it's for those that are ready to do the deep dive and they really want to teach the Egyptian Tantric tradition. Like they want to teach from this lineage that is not only working with Egypt, but is also working with that kind of golden high Tantra pathway, which I personally feel it is coming back right now on planet Earth in general, because it got so distorted, and obviously, as I think we all know, almost all of us at a certain point learned the belief, the idea that sex is a sin. Whether that was said verbally aloud to us, or whether it was taught non-verbally through the omission, through the omission, not emission, omission of even ever talking about sexuality. So it's kind of like not spoken of, and therefore becomes a shameful thing. And obviously the Christian teachings have done an amazing job at, perpetuating that belief system. And so it's a very, very deep wound within so many cultures all around the world. The vast majority, in fact, sadly, I feel, most of us have inherited that belief system to some degree. And so part of the return of the tantric teachings at this time, neo-tantra, and the different tantra from actually all the different lineages, because most lineages have some kind of a tantric teaching at some point. It might be secret and hidden, but it is coming back, because we need to reclaim and redivinize the sexuality and realign it back with the heart and the soul, and bring all of it back into service for the greater good of all mankind. And honestly, it might sound like a grand vision, but if everyone, or if a certain percentage of people all en masse reclaimed the tantric keys, there is a point where that could literally then be that the love making in the temple could just be your bedroom. It could be a larger temple than that. But the love making then becomes so divinized that it becomes then a healing prayer that is sent out to such a wide space, like it is touching the energy field for perhaps miles around you. This is the power of high Tantra from all the lineages. If it's being done in the right way, it has that capacity to bless on a very, very big scale. And that could ultimately then lead to, the evolution of the entire societal structure, the seeing of the ego program that is running all of politics will be lovingly taken and like loved into submission, and where it comes to then fall upon its knees in tears, because it realizes that it had forgotten the heart, it had forgotten love, it had forgotten compassion, and that too, of course, as we know, needs to be brought back into all business. All of politics needs to have the return of the heart. And so, it sounds like grand claims, but truly, once upon a time, that golden light frequency of the Egyptian Tantra was holding that frequency. And in fact, perhaps it was even holding it not only for all of Egypt, but perhaps it was even like beaming that frequency out to the wider world, perhaps even to the whole planet. Because as we know, the pyramids were the energy generators, and there were many other energy generators all around the world. And so the holding of that then becomes, it's not just about me having some great tantric sex. That's almost like an added final benefit. In a way, it is actually more like, no. Like, I mean, yes, we can say yes to the sex, and we can align it into the heart, align it into the soul, and allow it to become the prayer that's beaming out to the whole planet. Because my gosh, or my god, my goddess, the world is deeply in need of a profound level of healing that will actually come to permeate through every single layer and level of society. You know, either it does, or some even bigger wake-up calls are going to come that are going to, have to level the egoic powers that be, you know. And so in a way, in a funny kind of way, the ego that's like trying to run a country and it's like, no, 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 we've got to fucking hold on like this. If it is intelligent enough to see, hang on, is there a way to realign and to do all of this in service for the greater good of the whole planet? Like, just that on one level is just a little shift in how we're orienting, and yet it then ripples out through all the frickin' levels of society, and we bring back heaven on earth.
No big deal.
Hallelujah, praise Jesus.
Wow. Oh, you just have the most epic answers, and it's actually very on point with what I've been experiencing lately. Because I mean, I'll say this right now because we're just in the flow. But this morning, Isis told me that I needed to study dominatrix techniques,
Okay.
and I was like, why? Why do I need to learn how to be a dom? Not that that's something I want to do professionally, not yet, anyways. But it is, you mentioned, these powers that be need to come into submission. They need to actually be tamed, they need to be healed, they need to actually be given the attention they deserve. Because what I've learned is that a dom's role is actually just to have pointed focus attention on the sub, because they have to watch the hurting them too much. These little things. And it's really interesting because I think of it as like, okay, well, if we can rise into in that energy of that more the masculine energy side of things, where we're actually taking the right kinds of action and we're doing the right things, and we're enrolling ourselves in programs that we know we're going to change our lives and impact our community. That to me is, I think, how we get to this point where all of these power structures that are still running our world, and very, kind of, I would say, almost boastfully sort of, throwing it back in our face and being like, oh, you guys don't know what we're doing, but we're just, we're just controlling all the resources of this planet. It gets deep, but it's also so empowering to know that one of those pathways back to sovereignty, returning to this sacred balance of life, which our planet is asking for so dearly. And she's been very patient with us for a long time, and now we're kind of hitting that critical mass where it's go time for a lot of things. and so that's the power of this. I think that's, just to hear you really take this to that macro level reminds me a lot of why these daily practices matter, and why, in training our field properly and making sure that our energy is flowing well and that we're constantly purifying, and, just going back to our go-tos every single day. It's not a one and done thing, but it also has this compounding effect where over time we begin to then just expand our fields and our reach and our space holding capacity, grow from there. And it really becomes this beautiful process of just kind of allowing yourself to be an emissary, a representative of these divine forces that have no other way of working but through our sacred holy bodies, which are high technology. So with that, now that we've kind of come over the hour, I'd love for you to share an Ankh practice with everybody to close it out, so that we can all have a real lived experience of this amazing technique.
Oh gosh. Okay. I wasn't expecting that, but yes, I'm happy to let me just serve something up that's like a short little taste. And yeah, because with Ankh practice, it can very easily like get longer than it seems when you're doing the practice, is what I notice. But yes, let us anchor into that. And
Yeah. It'll be a good way to integrate the call too, and just let all the information, because this is a lot. This is a very
yeah, there
rich
was a lot
call.
in that.
So also using this practice
And
to
yeah, and so yeah, I'm absolutely happy to do that. I'm just wondering if there's anything I want to say just in response back to your words. I think just to speak also for a moment back into that, that sense of like there being one that is dominant, one that is submitting to that. And obviously that can play out in the world at large through politics. There's the powers that be that are dominant. There are the smaller people that are submissive. Can play out in the bedroom in a sexual connection with someone. One is leading, one is more in the masculine, one's more in the feminine. And I think in a way, especially for something like, say, like the role of someone that is choosing, like, I'm going to be the dominatrix. What I would say within that is, as long as it is coming from love, because in a way, again, like one may be in that role and playing that out because for some it could be that they've been deeply traumatized and they on some level of yearning to find a way to express that trauma back against someone else. So so it could be that playing that role could be playing out a trauma and keeping perhaps two people stuck. And yet the very, very same thing, if it is done profoundly and deeply with love from the ones that are playing that out, it could then be the thing that actually heals the trauma, the trauma that may have led to the desire to play it out in whatever way, in whatever form it might want to play out. And so I just find that also fascinating because it's almost a thing of it then becomes hard to judge someone else that might be doing something that within society it's still seen as like, oh, like S&M, this kind of thing, it's dark, it's dangerous. Actually it becomes a thing where it's like, well, where are the people standing, where are they coming from when they are in that act? And in fact, anything, as we know, can be done in a profoundly devotional and absolutely loving way, or it can be done from a level of egoic expression of, no, I'm powerful, I'm going to grab the whip and I'm going to show you how powerful I am. So again, even that I feel is like so it's so layered. It's so layered. Like there could be so much to that could be coming from the heart, or it could be coming from the ego. And I think, again, this also is where the ongoing journey throughout life for all of us is who's running the show, and is the heart leading and the soul guiding, or are there moments where the ego part is coming in and trying to get what it wants? And so again and again and again, I feel like we're all being invited to keep a check on what in Egyptian world you would say, in a way, uh, remaining conscious of where Set is in relation to the nation or the world of the body, when you bring it down to the personal level. Because Set, in some of the stories, in some of them, he's just killed off. But I think, as a lot of us know, we can't really kill the ego off, or it's, it is actually far simpler to just bring the ego back into their rightful place within the kingdom, in the kingdom of the body. And if the heart then is the one that is connected, and there's actually a beautiful Osiris posture where he's got one hand on the solar plexus, one hand on the heart. And in a way, what that is saying is, can we connect in and through the heart, and can the heart, in fact, be the one that is the wise advisor to the egoic aspect that is just below, So this also, like there's so much medicine in the Egyptian teachings, but let's do a little anking so we can finish with a little breath. So if you're up for staying for the experience, then feel free to close your eyes, drop into the body. And in the the mind's eye, we're picturing the base of the ankh at the base of the body. The wings of the ankh are at the level of the heart. They're expanding outwards either side of the physical body. And then the loop is starting at the heart, and it emerges out of the heart, rises up and loops around the top of the head, right the way to this bar point. And so if you were to bring your hands into this natural loop shape, the point where the two palms meet is the point where the top of the loop is. It's just off frame, I realize, but it's roughly like that. So then we've got the loop. So let's just let that go for a moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in, open through the T, hold the breath here. Exhale, gather back in to the heart. Rest the hands on the heart for a moment. And then on the next inhale, we're going to breathe as if we're breathing straight back up through that central pillar. And we're going to move through the loop with the hands. Looping up to the top. Awareness to the bar, to the soul point that dwells above the crown of the mind. Connection point to your soul path, your soul journey through this life. Whenever you need to, exhale from there back to the heart, back to the root. And the hands end up just by the root of the body again, base of the body. Let's do this a few more times so you start getting a feel for it. So on the next in-breath, raising to the heart, open the wings. Hold the breath. Feeling the expansion at the level of the heart into the field around you. Whenever you need to, exhale, gather the arms in, gathering the energy into the heart. Hands resting on the heart for a little moment. And again, let us, from there, inhale, raising the hands back through the loop. That's the bar, the soul. Hold the breath. Connected in, aligned in to medicine of your soul. Exhale from there back to the heart, soul to the heart, heart to the base, root. Let's do one more. It's a little bit more inflow. Inhale to the heart, open the wings. Gather into the heart. Inhale, heart to the soul. Hold the breath for a little moment. Exhale, soul to the heart and back to the root. And just take a moment just to notice anything in the body, any sensation, any heat. Noticing how the consciousness feels, how the beingness feels in this moment. Perhaps you feel more attuned, aligned, connected. And then gently, gently, in your own time, open your eyes, come back into the space. How is that feeling,
Powerful.
Lady Leah?
Beautiful. Yeah, it's always so powerful to do the Ankh breath with you. Like, I feel like we just charge each other up every day. But when I do it with you, there's something extra powerful. And I can only imagine when an entire group is together across the globe doing these practices together, it will be on a whole nother
It's
level.
so cool. Yeah. It's so amazing. Yeah.
It's real. It's subtle at first, and then all of a sudden it's just like your head's moving on its own, it's calibrating something, or you're feeling this gyration through the spine, or there's these moments
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, the energy is moving and it's doing its own thing.
Yeah,
So
it can
yeah.
show, it can express in so many ways, I find, as in some people get really emotional when they do the Ankh practice, others get super energized by it. I mean, I feel in a way like it always energizes, but it might energize in different ways for different people. So yeah, at times also for me, I've found like, the body starts shaking and there's trembling and things like that. Other times on the outside, it looks like really, really still and really meditative. And yet on the inside, it's like there's this, like growing ball of golden light, or it feels like the whole Ankh symbol is lighting up with gold and expanding and spinning and starting to do all these crazy movements. So there can be so much going on. And what I love with that is that, from the outside, if someone to just look, it'll be like, oh, Kia's just doing some meditating. And yet on the inside, like so many things can be happening. It can be so potent. So, yes. Here's to the Ankh.
Wow,
We love the Ankh.
amazing. We do. I
Yeah.
love your giant Ankh.
I love my giant Ankh.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow. So is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off today?
I think just to, if you've never tried the Ankh practice, then just try it, even just from that little bit of guidance. And if you weren't feeling it, just do it a bit longer, because that was quite a short little round. We just did 3 rounds. So if you weren't feeling anything, then do it for another 3 rounds and maybe another 3 rounds, like go to 9, 3, 6, 9. As Nikola Tesla says, they're the keys to the universe. They're also the keys to working with the Ankh as well. So do rounds of 3 and just keep going for as long as you might want to, because sometimes, especially if someone's kind of new to spiritual practice, it might just take a little while to dial into it. If someone's super sensitive already, you'll feel it like super quick, might be instant. So I think also I just want to kind of, say like, if you feel this thing of like, there's something in this for me, and if you try the practice and you don't feel it yet, then don't just be like, well, I've given that 3 rounds and then clearly that's not for me. It might just be that you're going to be going on a little journey of sensitizing. Like I think back to like when I was 21 years old and like first getting into doing spiritual practices, I ended up in an ashram in India, and they were like, okay, shake up and down with the body. And I start shaking up and down. And I remember a moment where I was like, am I doing this right? I don't know if I'm doing this right. Let me just look at how other people are doing it. And I opened my eyes and I looked around, and everybody around me was in like profound states of ecstasy and shaking, and all this wildness was happening. And on my side, I just felt really shit. Like I could feel all this gunk in my system that was coming up because I'd never done any practice like this before. And so, I think as with any spiritual tool, technique, practice, the word practice is there because sometimes you need to give it a bit of practice, a bit of time before you start sensitizing to it, and before you then really start then kind of almost like unlocking the magic and the mystery of it. And some of that at times is also like reminding ourselves to get out of the logical left brain that so many of us have been educated into, and start feeling in to what's happening in the body. And it's not actually about ignoring the logical left. It's actually you appoint the logical left as the scientist and observer of what's happening in the body. So then it can be analyzing, is there anything alive in the body in this moment? That becomes the role of the analyzer, is to keep watching moment to moment to moment what's happening in the body. And if nothing's happening in the body, like that part of the mind's like, nothing yet. Keep doing the practice, nothing yet. Oh, hang on, there's some sensation going on in the body. And so you are then, the logical left is then becoming involved, deeply involved, in fact, with the experience that you can be led to through any practice. Or spiritual practice can get you there. So yeah,
wow,
I think it's good for
incredible
people not to get discouraged.
So absolutely, it is a journey. It is a deep journey, and the layers are they're it's such a miraculous process to really discover yourself in this way as an energy body, and to interact with yourself in this way, because it will entrain anything. And sometimes it's a big careful what you wish for sort of circumstance, because you can see a lot of big changes happen quickly, which is the beauty of this lineage too, is it really does help us move through those death portals and the duat with more grace, because you won't be the same after this.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm sure they could ask. And yeah, and your website is mysticaschool.com, so all the information is there. Are there any deadlines people should be aware of, anything like that?
Ankh Healing starts end of February. Info's on the website. We can also drop it into the YouTube and things as well, so people have got easy access. Mentorship end of April. And there's a whole new training that may birth in between that. And it's literally so brand new that I don't even know what the dates are for that yet. So that will go out on the mailing list. So if you're not on the mailing list, feel free to join it. Or if you just want the first taste, this book is insanely cheap. It's $5. You get the book, you get 7 free videos, you get a guided audio of how to work with Ankh Healing. It is insanely, it was so cheap that there was a point where we were like, should we charge for this? Because it was, it's so cheap that it's almost not worth charging. And yet it felt still right to put a little price on it. But it's, just the book and the videos. For someone that's curious, it's like a really easy way in to start drinking some of the waters. And you'll know from the drinking whether the waters are for you or not. So, yeah.
Best $5 I've ever spent, honestly. I like into that bundle. It's like, Kiya's being very generous
isn't it
today.
like so, yeah. And I was just thinking, like in America, I guess in Canada, isn't that the equivalent? Is that the equivalent to like a coffee and maybe like a little muffin in Starbucks? Like
not even.
I've not lived in the West, so
less than one coffee.
It's less than a coffee. my God, then it's totally worth it. Yeah. Okay. My pricing is out because I've been
Definitely
living in
pick that
Bali
up.
so many years. I don't know what the price equivalent is. So yeah, less than a price of coffee.
No, the cost of food is rising. So definitely save lifetimes of pain and spend
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
$5
yeah.
and
Yeah.
get a taste of this incredible work because I'm just so grateful for you, Kiya, and all that you do. And this is really deep, powerful stuff, and it's coming in for you. So if you're watching this, there's no mistakes. This lineage has this special way of finding people, and so just start dabbling and explore, and maybe one of them's gonna be the right thing for you this year.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
I think,
Aset.
it can be as simple as if there's something when you see the image of Isis, if you just kind of have this feeling of like, there's something about this lady that I've got to know more about, like she's magical, as I think we both know. I'm just wiping a little bit of cobweb off of her. There's something profoundly magical in her consciousness, her teachings. It comes through many, many different teachers in the world today. So if you don't vibe with me, just find the teacher that you vibe with and start drinking from her medicine because she's got so much to share with the world. So here's to Isis.
I'd love to share I'd love to share the Neteru asking me to share just a very short little closing code for everybody here because that's how they operate.
Would
They
love
like
to
to
hear.
speak through. And okay, wonderful. So this is just a short channeling of the Heka codes and Heka means magic. That really helps for integration and also just for some general illumination and activation of your Ka body. So just closing down the eyes. With your permission, I will offer these codes to support you on your ascension journey and to really bring you into that higher resonance with this powerful work. Ruttuneret kiaramaat hekara sahuret ka reiki 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 araka sahuret ka reiki aramaat haturet ka reiki araka sahuret ka reiki 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 araka hekara sahuret ka ret ka reiki aramaat Hekara sahuret netere kiara ka sahuret ka. Hekara sahuret neteret karet karet ka. Rekiara ka sa 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 sa. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I was feeling that.
Thank you to the Neteru.
Thank
What did you
you,
feel?
Leah, for that last Heka transmission activation. I was liking the little like what was it? Reiki, Reka, something like that. So I was hearing the Reiki and the Ka, which also felt very kind of relevant to sort of like closing it off. Like it feels in some ways also so in some ways connected to Reiki, also connected right the way back to the ancient Ka teachings, and feels very potent. Like when I hear you just bring the words through, then for me, what I notice is like my whole energy body starts activating and like heat starts rising up the spine actually. So there's power in the sound codes.
Yeah, it seems
like there's so much power in the sound codes. And you feel like at some point maybe we should do a deep dive even more into looking at the sound codes.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about chanting.
I know, that'll be for another time. But like I feel like there's so much that you've downloaded which feels very, very unique to your stream and your download of how to work with the sound frequencies and the sound codes. And I, as you know, but maybe others don't, like I've also been working a lot with the chants. The chants were also the first thing that brought Isis in So it can truly and quite literally invite and welcome the support of a god or a goddess quite literally into your life. So they are then supporting you, guiding you, helping you. So there's so much in them. So maybe we do another live stream at some point.
Yeah.
Let's do a deep dive into that, because I'd love to just, sort of unpick some of that whole, the sound, the universe of sound. And within that, there's also like the Tantra of sound. This was something that a friend of mine received years ago. He was working with the Hathor teachings, working with Tantra, and Tantra through the working with the sound frequencies. So yeah, so many things we could talk
Yeah.
about. Let's
So
start that
yes,
conversation
if you're watching
another
this,
time.
drink some water. Drink some water, get on the earth. You might feel a few things. You might even notice things in your dream time. And yeah, and if you need any support, you can. And really hope to see you in the container and in the Mystica School this year.
Yeah.
Okay, we can chat forever, but do you want to close it out with a little prayer?
I could close it out with a little prayer. So I could do like a little bit of the prayer of awakening. Nihiz, 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 nihizim mutib, nihizim nifiru, nibit ausib, webenim mutib, webenim nifiru, nujetenach, nujetenach, nujetenach. Tuatu, 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 tuatu. Awake, 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 Isis, awake in peace, awake in beauty. Goddess of life, Nujet and Ah, Goddess of life. Tu Atu, I adore you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Isis. Thank you to the Egyptian teachings. Thank you to the lineage that is rebirthing, resurrecting for this time upon this earth. Thank you for all the gifts and the blessings from the divine realms on down into all the teachers that are sharing it, to all those ones that are receiving it, and to the earth herself. May all receive the teachings, the remembrance of the divinity, the purity of the Egyptian lineage that returns now to bless this earth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you. We thank you for listening, for receiving these words. Phew. To Atu, I adore you. This is a beautiful final line. Thank you, love. Thank you, Leah. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being such a beautiful priestess on the path, and also for being such a support to my work, to my sharings, and to your community as well there in Canada. And yeah, I feel like you're doing some beautiful work, and looking forward to whatever we're going to co-weave in the future, however it might look.
Can't wait. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye for now.